Christmas Eve, the convoy of military trucks rolled out of base one by one, carrying soldiers home for the holidays. Sniper Lena Hart held her leave ticket in her hand the first time in 3 years she'd be going home. She imagined her mother's face, the smell of pine needles in their small living room, the creak of the old wooden stairs. But as she approached the security gate, sirens pierced the night, an urgent transmission from the battlefield. Echo Team trapped deep in a valley of fire, surrounded, no way out. No one else had the skill to breach those defenses. Lena stopped, her Christmas coat still draped over her arm. She turned back toward the place where death was waiting. The transport manifest had read Hart, approved 72 HR leave for exactly 9 days. Lena had checked it every morning, afraid it might disappear like smoke. 28 years old, 3 consecutive years deployed without a single break, and she'd finally earned this moment. Her duffel bag sat by her bunk, already packed. Inside, civilian clothes that felt strange to fold, a wrapped gift for her mother, and a photograph of her father in his dress uniform. Master Sergeant David Hart had died when Lena was 14. Heart attack, no warning, just gone. Christmas had never been the same. Her mother, Caroline, had tried to maintain traditions, but the empty chair at dinner turned every celebration into a vigil. When Lena enlisted at 18, Caroline didn't protest. She understood that her daughter needed purpose, structure, something to fill the space her father left behind. "You really leaving us, Hart?" Corporal Jenkins appeared at her door, grinning. He held out a red knit scarf, clearly handmade, slightly lopsided. "Miller's grandma made it. Says every soldier needs something warm for Christmas." Lena took it carefully, running her thumb over the uneven stitches. "Tell her thank you. We're gonna miss our guardian angel," Jenkins said, his smile fading. "Nobody shoots like you. That Kandahar op last month? You saved my life. I know I didn't say it then, but you don't have to." Lena folded the scarf and placed it on top of her bag. "Just stay sharp while I'm gone." The base had that particular stillness that comes before a holiday. Fewer vehicles moving, quieter voices in the mess hall. Even the wind seemed gentler, as if acknowledging that tonight, warriors deserved rest. Lena walked toward the gate, her boots crunching on gravel that was beginning to freeze. Above her, stars emerged through thinning clouds. She'd missed so many Christmases looking at these same stars from distant mountains, through rifle scopes, waiting for threats that might never come. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Flight lands at 9 a.m. I'll be waiting at arrivals. I love you, Lena." She was typing her response when the world changed. The alarm shattered the evening like breaking glass. Deep, urgent tones that every soldier recognized instantly. Red lights began rotating on the command building. Boots thundered as personnel sprinted to stations. A Black Hawk lifted off from the rapid response pad, rotors screaming, within 45 seconds of the first siren. Lena's hand tightened around her phone. She knew that sound. Emergency extraction. Someone was in trouble. All senior NCOs and officers to the TOC immediately. The base-wide announcement crackled through speakers. "This is not a drill. Repeat. All senior personnel to the Tactical Operations Center now." For 5 seconds, Lena stood frozen between two worlds. The gate was 30 yards away. Beyond it, a civilian vehicle waited to take her to the airfield. Her mother was probably already packing Christmas cookies, checking the guest room one more time, making sure everything was perfect. Then, she heard the second announcement, and her decision crystallized. "Echo Team is dark. Multiple casualties. Position overrun. We need immediate QRF deployment, and static consume the rest." Echo Team, Mason's team. Captain Ryan Mason had saved her life in Helmand Province 2 years ago. When her spotter took a round through the neck and she was pinned by enemy fire, Mason led his team 3 clicks under sustained gunfire to pull her out. He'd carried her spotter himself, applying pressure to the wound while directing his men, never hesitating. The spotter survived. Lena never forgot. She turned away from the gate. The Tactical Operations Center was organized chaos. Satellite feeds covered one wall, showing grainy thermal imagery of mountainous terrain. Radio operators worked 3 frequencies simultaneously. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Reeves stood at the center console, his face carved from stone, studying a topographical map projected onto the main screen. Lena entered without knocking. Reeves glanced up, registered her presence, and said nothing about the fact she should have been off base already. Echo engaged hostile forces at 1,840 hours. Reeves began without preamble. Other senior personnel filed in Special Forces operators, intelligence officers, the base commander. They were conducting recon on suspected weapons cache in the Razor Pit Valley. Grid coordinates November 7-3-4. They tripped a prepared ambush. We lost comms 18 minutes ago. Last transmission indicated 3 wounded, at least 15 hostiles, and enemy forces occupying high ground with crew-served weapons. He zoomed in on the map. The valley appeared as a narrow slash between vertical cliff faces, barely 200 meters wide at its base, maybe 800 meters long. A kill box. Geography is against us, continued Reeves. Razor Pit is named appropriately. Sheer rock walls, single-lane approach, no air support possible due to weather front moving in. Ceilings dropping to 300 feet. Heavy snow starting within the hour. Major Sarah Chen from Intelligence spoke up. Thermal shows Echo consolidated in a rock formation here. She indicated a cluster of boulders at the valley's eastern end, but they're taking fire from 3 directions. North Ridge, South Ridge, and this elevated position at the western approach. That position has a PKM machine gun. Confirmed. They're pinned. Can't move. What about artillery? Someone asked. Too close to Echo's position, Reeves said flatly. Danger close doesn't begin to describe it. And the weather's going to ground anything with rotors in 40 minutes. We have 1 window. Send in a full platoon, suggested Captain Briggs from Alpha Company. Overwhelming force. Not enough time to muster and brief them. And it's not just about numbers, it's about precision. Whoever goes in needs to neutralize that PKM first, or they'll get shredded, same as Echo. Reeves looked directly at Lena. The hostile gunner is behind Hardin position. Range to nearest viable approach is 1,200 meters. Night conditions. Snow. Wind picking up to 20 knots. The room went quiet. 1,200 meters. That was the province of expert marksmen, not average infantry. Hart. Reeves spoke her name like a question and an answer simultaneously. You've made that shot before. Kosovo, 2023, 1,400 meters, rain, moving target. You took out the spotter before he could call artillery on our position. Lena felt every eye turn toward her. Her leave ticket was still in her jacket pocket, edges worn from where she'd touched it obsessively for 9 days. Echo team has 6 personnel, Reeves continued. Captain Mason, 3 Special Forces operators, 1 combat medic, 1 Air Force JTAC. They have families waiting for them too. It wasn't a guilt trip. Reeves didn't operate that way. He was simply stating facts, laying out the equation, and letting her solve it. Leadership through clarity. Lena thought about her father. David Hart had been a Marine. She'd found his old journal after he died, read his deployment entries. One passage stayed with her. I don't fight because I hate what's in front of me. I fight because I love what's behind me. And sometimes, love means sacrifice. She met Reeves' eyes. If you were an Echo, what would you want my father to do? Your father, Reeves said slowly, would already be gearing up. Lena walked to the console and studied the topographical display. I need 4 people, demolitions expert for breach and IED clearing, combat medic, scout with night vision and drone capability. And you, sir, because someone needs to coordinate extraction once we get them out. Your mission lead? I'm the one making the shot that matters, so yes. Reeves nodded. Assemble your team. Wheels up in 20 minutes. Lena pulled out her phone, opened the message to her mother, stared at it. Then she deleted her half-written response and typed, Mom, I'm sorry. I have to stay a little longer. I love you. I'll explain everything when I see you. Merry Christmas. She placed her leave ticket on Reeves' desk and walked out. The armory at night smelled like gun oil and cold metal. Lena moved through it with practiced efficiency, selecting her tools. The M2010 enhanced sniper rifle came first bolt action. 300 Winchester Magnum. Effective range well beyond what she'd need tonight. She checked the action 3 times, peered through the barrel, examining the rifling under harsh fluorescent light. Next, the scope. AN-PVS-29 clip-on night vision with thermal overlay. She calibrated it against known distance targets on the range board, adjusting for temperature and humidity. Her gloves were specially designed thin enough for trigger feel, insulated enough to prevent frostbite. She'd learned the hard way in Alaska that frozen fingers miss shots. The red scarf from Jenkins lay on the bench where she'd set down her bag. Lena picked it up, looked at it for a long moment, then used her knife to cut away the tassels. They'd snag on equipment. She kept a small square of the fabric and tucked it into her plate carrier pocket, a reminder of what she was fighting for. "Rapid 6 is assembled," said a voice behind her. She turned. 3 soldiers stood at attention. Staff Sergeant Jace Morrison, Demolitions. 34, originally from Montana, certified in every explosive device in the U.S. arsenal and half the foreign ones. Calm under pressure, meticulous, hands steady as bedrock. Captain Mira Ochoa, combat medic. 29, former emergency room nurse from Houston who joined the Army after her brother died in Afghanistan. She'd saved more lives in 4 years than most medics see in 20. Sergeant First Class Danny Ramirez, scout and drone operator. 26, grew up in New Mexico, could read terrain like other people read newspapers. If there was a hidden path, an alternate route, a tactical advantage in the landscape, Ramirez found it. "We're Oscar Mike in 15, Lena told them. "Razor Pit is a grinder. Enemy has elevation, prepared positions, and weather turning in their favor. Our job is simple. Get in, neutralize the machine gun, extract Echo, get out. Questions? Rules of engagement?" Ramirez asked. "Anyone pointing a weapon at us or Echo dies. Everyone else, we bypass if possible. This is rescue, not revenge. Speed and precision." Jace held up a breaching charge. "What about the approach? Intel shows mines along the southern route. You'll clear them. That's why you're here." Mira checked her medical pack. "Casualty estimates?" "Echo reported 3 wounded before they went dark. Expect worse by the time we arrive. Be ready for trauma." Reeves entered carrying a tablet. "Weather update. Snow's coming faster than predicted. You have 35 minutes of viable flying time, maybe 40. After that, we can't extract by air until dawn at earliest. Then we better work fast." Lena slung her rifle across her back. "Let's move." The MH-60 Black Hawk waited on the pad, rotors already turning. They climbed aboard, and Lena took her position by the open door. As the helicopter lifted off, she watched the base fall away beneath them, lights dimming, becoming small, then tiny, then just a glow on the horizon. Jace leaned close to be heard over the rotor noise. "You were supposed to be on leave." "Yeah." "Your mom know you're not coming?" "Yeah." He nodded slowly. "My wife's gonna be pissed I missed Christmas, 3rd year running. But she gets it. She was Army too. Some things you just gotta do." The helicopter banked hard, heading northeast toward the mountains. Snow began to streak past the windows, individual flakes becoming visible in the instrument lights. Lena checked her rifle one more time, then settled back and closed her eyes, running through the shot in her mind. Wind correction, elevation, breath control. The fundamentals never changed. 20 minutes later, the pilot's voice crackled in their headsets. 2 minutes to LZ. Gonna be rough winds picking up. Lena opened her eyes. Below them, mountains rose like broken teeth, snow-covered and treacherous. Somewhere down there, 6 soldiers were fighting for their lives. "Rapid 6, on me," she said into her radio. "We're bringing them home." The helicopter couldn't land, the terrain was too broken, the weather too severe. They fast-roped into a small clearing half a click from the valley entrance, dropping through swirling snow into darkness. The moment Lena's boots hit ground, she went to one knee, rifle up, scanning her sector. The others landed in sequence, establishing a defensive perimeter automatically. "Moving," she said quietly, and they fell into formation. The approach to Razor Pit was exactly as hostile as the intelligence suggested. The ground rose gradually, covered in loose scree that shifted underfoot, threatening to start rock slides with every step. Visibility dropped to maybe 60 meters in the snow. They moved slowly, deliberately, with Ramirez on point, using his night vision to pick out the safest path. 15 minutes in, Ramirez held up a closed fist. Everyone froze. He knelt, examining something on the ground, then carefully brushed away snow. Beneath it, barely visible, a wire. "Tripwire," he whispered into his radio. "Probably connected to a mine or an IED. They've seeded the entire approach." Jace moved forward with his equipment. He followed the wire with his eyes, then his hands, tracing it to its source, a PMN-2 anti-personnel mine, Soviet-era design, but still deadly effective. He worked in silence for 3 minutes, disconnecting the trigger mechanism, then carefully lifting the mine and setting it aside. "Clear," he murmured. "But there'll be more." They continued, finding 2 more mines in the next 100 meters. Each time, Jace disarmed them while the others provided security. It was agonizingly slow work, every second ticking away from their extraction window. Lena scanned the ridgelines with her scope, searching for movement. The thermal overlay showed several heat signatures on the northern ridge enemy personnel, probably 4 or 5. They weren't moving, just watching, waiting, confident in their position. Through the falling snow, she heard it, the distinctive crack 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 of AK-47 fire, echoing down the valley, then the heavier, sustained burst of a PKM machine gun. Echo was still engaged. "They're alive," Mira said, relief evident in her voice. "For now," Reeves responded. He'd been monitoring the tactical net, "but they're running low on ammunition, and one of their wounded is critical. We need to accelerate." Ramirez pointed ahead. "Valley entrance is 200 meters. Beyond that, it narrows to choke point, perfect kill zone." Lena studied the terrain through her scope. She could see muzzle flashes from the machine gun position there, on the western ridge, exactly where intelligence had placed it. 1,200 meters away, maybe more. The gunner was firing in controlled bursts, disciplined, experienced. And then she saw something that made her blood run cold. She zoomed in on a piece of spent brass lying on a rock near the entrance. Even in thermal view, she could see its distinctive shape. She directed Ramirez to retrieve it. He crawled forward, grabbed it, crawled back, handed it to her. Silver-tipped, custom-made. She'd seen this ammunition once before, in a classified briefing about enemy combatants of interest. "Oh no," she whispered. "What?" Reeves asked. "This is Spectre's work." The radio went silent. Spectre. The name was spoken in hushed tones among special operations personnel. Not because he was the deadliest, though he was certainly among them, but because he was personal. Spectre hunted specific targets, studied them, learned their patterns and tactics. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to beat you at your own game. Lena had encountered him once before, during a black operation in the Balkans that officially never happened. She'd been providing overwatch for a team raiding a weapons facility. Spectre had been doing the same for the defenders. For 6 hours, they dueled across a valley, each trying to outthink the other. She'd won that fight, barely, with a shot that came down to pure instinct. She'd seen his silhouette fall from his position, assumed he was dead or at least critically wounded. Apparently, he'd survived. And apparently, he remembered. "This isn't a random ambush," Lena said, gathering the team around her. "Echo stumbled into a trap, yes, but the trap wasn't meant for them. It was meant for whoever came to rescue them. It was meant for me." "You think he knew you'd come?" Mira asked. "I think he knew someone good would come, and he wanted a worthy opponent. The silver-tipped rounds are his signature. He wants me to know he's here." Reeves cut in through the radio. "Does this change the mission?" Lena looked toward the valley, where Echo Team was still under fire, ammunition running low, one man dying by inches. She thought about Mason, about Jenkins, about every soldier who trusted her to watch their backs. "No sir, mission unchanged. We get Echo out. But now I know what I'm really up against." Jace checked his watch. "We have maybe 25 minutes before extraction window closes. Then we move now. Ramirez, take us in. Fastest safe route." They advanced into Razor Pit proper. The valley walls rose on either side, 100-meter cliffs of bare rock that channeled wind into a howling tunnel. Snow came almost horizontal here, reducing visibility to 30 meters. Lena's face stung from the cold despite her balaclava. The sounds of combat grew louder. She could distinguish individual shots, now the steady American M4 fire from Echo's position, the AK responses from enemy fighters, and dominating everything, that damned PKM machine gun sweeping the valley floor in long, killing bursts. "Contact front," Ramirez hissed. 3 enemy fighters appeared from behind a boulder pile, moving to flank Echo's position. They hadn't seen Rapid 6 yet. Lena took the first one with a shot through the chest at 700 meters. Jace got the second, with his suppressed M4. The third dove for cover, shouted a warning, then made the mistake of raising his head to look around. Lena's second shot ended him. "Echo, this is Rapid 6, Reeves transmitted. "We are in the valley, moving to your position. Acknowledge." Static. Then, Rapid 6, Echo Actual. We are gunfire drowned out the rest. Then, 1 KIA, 3 wounded, 1 critical. We are nearly Winchester on ammo. Enemy forces approximately 12 to 15, concentrated on North Ridge and at Western Machine Gun Nest. Be advised, their shooter is exceptional. Lost our JTAC to a headshot at 800 meters in these conditions. 800 meters in a snowstorm. That wasn't luck or random fire. That was skill. Copy Echo. Recommend you conserve ammunition. We will handle the machine gun. ETA to your position 10 mics. Understood. Echo out. Lena found a position behind a tilted slab of rock that gave her a view up the valley. She deployed her bipod, settled into a prone shooting position, and began her breathing exercises. Slow in, slow out, heart rate dropping. The world narrowing to what she could see through her scope. Through the thermal overlay, she saw Echo's position 5 figures clustered in a depression between boulders, one lying still, another barely moving. Saw the enemy fighters on the North Ridge, taking turns popping up to fire. And there, at the western end of the valley, the machine gun nest. But no sign of Spectre. He was too smart to reveal himself. He'd be in a hide somewhere, perfectly concealed, waiting for her to make a mistake. Jace, Mira, Ramirez, you 3 move to Echo's position under my cover, Lena ordered. I'm going hunting. Negative, Reeves said immediately. We don't split the team. Sir, that machine gun has to go down or we all die here. And Spectre won't engage anyone but me. He wants this personal, so I'm going to give him what he wants, but on my terms. Silence on the radio. Then, you have 15 minutes. If you're not back by then, we extract without you. Roger that. Lena disconnected from the team and began to climb. The western wall of Razor Pit wasn't truly vertical. There were cracks, ledges, places where rock falls had created something almost like stairs if you squinted and had a death wish. Lena climbed slowly, methodically, testing each handhold before trusting it with her weight. The rifle on her back threw off her balance. Snow accumulated in her gloves. 50 feet up, she paused to shake out her hands, restore feeling to her fingers. Below her, she heard the sharp crack of M4 fire as Jace, Mira, and Ramirez made their push toward Echo. The machine gun opened up immediately, tracers streaking through the darkness like angry hornets. But her team was moving smart, using cover, bounding from position to position. Good. She climbed higher, 100 feet. The wind was worse here, pulling at her, trying to pluck her off the cliff face. Her breathing was labored from exertion, from altitude, from the fact that one slip meant a fall that would leave her dead or crippled at the base. At 150 feet, she found what she was looking for, a ledge wide enough to lie prone, with a clear view down into the valley. More importantly, it gave her a line of sight to the machine gun nest. She could see the gunner now through her scope, a large man, methodical, firing in careful bursts to conserve ammunition while maintaining suppression. Range, 1,247 meters according to her laser rangefinder. Wind, gusting from the northeast at 18 to 23 knots. Temperature, 22 degrees Fahrenheit and dropping. Elevation change, 157 feet, angle approximately 6.7 degrees. She began her calculations, adjusting her scope's turrets. At this range, gravity would pull the bullet nearly 6 feet below her point of aim. The wind would push it perhaps 18 inches right. The cold air was dense, giving the bullet slightly more lift than standard conditions. She factored it all in, made her adjustments, then settled in to wait for the shot. But something was wrong. Her instincts, honed through hundreds of missions, screamed danger. She was exposed here, visible, and Spectre would know that she'd need elevation to make this shot. She rolled left just as a bullet struck the rock where her head had been. Stone exploded, fragments cutting her cheek. She scrambled behind a boulder, heart hammering. There, on the opposite ridge, barely visible through the snow, a muzzle flash. Spectre had been waiting for her. Of course he had. He'd known she'd climb, known she'd need the high ground. He'd been watching, patient, letting her get into position before taking his shot. You've gotten better, she muttered to herself. Or maybe she'd gotten predictable. Her radio crackled. Heart, report. I'm okay. Contact with hostile sniper. Adjusting position. She couldn't stay here. Spectre knew exactly where she was. But moving meant exposing herself again. And the machine gun was still hammering Echo's position. She could hear Mira shouting for a medic bag. Someone was hit. Decision time. Lena did something Spectre wouldn't expect. She stood up, fully exposed, and fired 3 rapid shots at his position. They wouldn't hit, she wasn't even aiming precisely, but they'd force him to duck, to react, to break his observation of her. Then she jumped. Not down, she'd die. But across, to another ledge 15 feet away and 10 feet lower. For a brief, terrifying moment, she was airborne, wind tearing at her, rifle swinging wildly on its sling. She hit the next ledge hard, rolled, came up behind cover. 2 more shots from Spectre struck near her previous position. He was fast, she'd give him that. But now, she had a different angle, and more importantly, she had a view of his position. Just for a moment, as he shifted to track her movement, she saw him thermal signature, shape of his rifle, the cant of his shooting position. She made her own adjustments, accounting for the new range 1,180 meters and the cross valley wind. This was the shot that mattered, not the machine gunner, Spectre first. Without him, the machine gunner was just another target. Through her scope, she watched him settle back into position. He thought he'd forced her into cover, thought he had time to relocate to a better hide. He thought wrong. Lena's finger took up the slack on her trigger. She exhaled halfway, held it, let her heartbeat slow to nothing. Time seemed to stop. She squeezed. The rifle's recoil was familiar, comforting. Through the scope, Lena watched the bullets trace a faint distortion in the air, barely visible even with her optics. For 1.8 seconds, everything hung in the balance. Then she saw Spectre jerk backward, saw him grab his left shoulder, hit but not a kill shot. The angle had been slightly off, or the wind had gusted at the wrong moment, or she'd miscalculated by a single degree. At this range, any tiny error was magnified. But a wounded enemy was still dangerous, and Spectre was far from finished. He disappeared behind cover, moving despite his wound, with a speed that spoke to training and pain tolerance. Lena tracked the direction of his movement, anticipated where he'd emerge. Her radio lit up. "Hart, Echo is taking heavy casualties. We need that gun down now." She'd forgotten about the machine gunner in the duel with Spectre. That was exactly what Spectre wanted to occupy her attention while his partner shredded the Americans below. Tactical decision. Split focus or commit. She committed to the machine gun, swung her rifle toward the western nest, found the gunner in her scope. He was reloading, wrestling a fresh belt into the PKM. Range 1,247 meters. She'd already calculated this shot. She fired. The gunner collapsed forward over his weapon, dead before he heard the shot. "Machine gun neutralized," she reported. Below, Jace and Ramirez immediately advanced on Echo's position under suppressing fire from Mira. They reached the trap team in 30 seconds, beginning the process of casualty evacuation and fighting withdrawal. But Lena's fight wasn't over. Another bullet cracked past her, so close she felt its wake. Spectre had relocated, found a new position. He was shooting one-handed, using his rifle as best he could, despite the shoulder wound. His shots were less precise than before, but at this range, less precise still meant deadly. She needed to move again. This ledge was compromised. She scrambled along the cliff face, moving laterally, keeping low. Her foot slipped on ice-covered rock, and for one heart-stopping second she slid toward the edge. Her hand shot out, grabbed an outcropping, held on. She pulled herself back from the drop. Focus. Can't think about the fall. Only the shot. She found another position 30 feet along the cliff. Better cover, worse angle, trade-offs. Through her scope, she searched for Spectre. He'd gone to ground, hiding his thermal signature somehow. Smart, very smart. Probably wrapped in an emergency blanket or found a natural heat sink in the rocks. But he'd have to move eventually. Everyone does. Lena waited. Below, she could hear the sounds of Echo Team's extraction. Reeves was coordinating with the helicopter crew for an emergency pickup despite the weather. They had maybe 10 minutes before the blizzard made flying impossible. Rapid 6 to Hart. We have Echo. 5 souls, 1 critical, moving to extraction point Hotel 3. What's your status? Still engaged with hostile sniper. Don't wait for me. Get them out. Hart. That's an order, sir. Echo comes first. She meant it. If the choice was between her and 6 other soldiers, the math was simple. A glint of movement caught her eye. There, Spectre, shifting position, trying to get an angle on the evacuation route. He was going to target Echo Team as they moved. Not happening. Lena saw him for maybe 2 seconds. That was all the window she got. He was behind partial cover, only his head and part of his shoulder visible. Range, 1,095 meters. Steep downward angle. Wind had shifted to 25 knots, almost directly cross valley now. This was an impossible shot. Not just difficult, impossible. The target was too small. The conditions too severe. The angle too complex. Any instructor at sniper school would call it a waste of ammunition. But she'd made impossible shots before. She didn't aim for his head. Too small, too likely to miss. She aimed for the rock 6 inches to his right, calculating that her wind correction would actually push the bullet into him rather than away. It was backwards thinking, counterintuitive, exactly the kind of shot a normal marksman would never consider. She fired. Through her scope, she saw the impact not where she'd aimed, but exactly where she'd meant the bullet to go. Saw Spectre jerk, saw him fall back out of view. "Target down," she reported, her voice steady despite her racing heart. She didn't know if he was dead or just wounded again. Didn't have time to confirm. The helicopter was inbound, rotors audible even over the wind. Lena began her descent, moving recklessly fast, half climbing and half falling down the cliff face. Her hands were numb, her cheek bleeding from the rock fragments, but adrenaline pushed her through. She reached the valley floor and ran toward the extraction point, where Rapid 6 and Echo Team were consolidated in a defensive perimeter. The Black Hawk came in hard, flaring at the last moment, skids barely touching the ground. "Go! Go! Go!" Reeves shouted. They loaded the wounded first. Mason was one of them, unconscious, multiple gunshot wounds. Mira worked on him even as they lifted him into the helicopter. Then the rest of Echo, then Rapid 6. Lena was the last one in. As she climbed aboard, she looked back at the valley one final time, at the ridge where Spectre had been. A figure stood there, silhouetted against the snow. One arm hung useless, but he was alive, and he was watching. She met his gaze across the distance, and even though she couldn't see his face, she knew he was acknowledging her. Respect between warriors. This round to her, but there would be others. The helicopter lifted off, banking sharply to clear the valley walls. Gunfire chased them, enemy forces on the ridges, firing in frustration and rage, but the pilots were skilled, and within seconds they were clear, heading home. The flight back to base took 23 minutes. Mira never stopped working on Mason, performing CPR when his heart faltered, forcing air into his lungs when his breathing stopped. Lena assisted, following Mira's terse instructions, pushing down on Mason's chest with steady, rhythmic compressions. "Come on, Captain," Mira muttered. "Don't you quit on me, not after we came all this way." At minute 17, Mason gasped. His eyes fluttered open briefly, unfocused, confused, then closed again. "Pulse is back," Mira said, sagging with relief. "Weak but steady, he's got a chance." The other Echo Team members were in better shape, one with a through-and-through gunshot wound to the leg, another with shrapnel wounds, the rest with various cuts and bruises. But they were alive, all of them. The one who hadn't made it was Sergeant James Torres, the JTAC who'd taken Spectre's headshot early in the engagement. His body was wrapped in a poncho liner, strapped securely in the helicopter's cargo area. Someone had placed an American flag patch over his chest. He was 24, one of the Echo operators said to Lena. 3 months from ETS. Had a job lined up, girlfriend waiting for him. Was gonna propose at Christmas. Lena nodded, not trusting herself to speak. This was the cost. This was always the cost. The base appeared ahead, lights blazing in the darkness. Emergency vehicles waited on the tarmac, ambulances, medical staff, the whole rapid response medical team. The helicopter touched down, and controlled chaos erupted as the wounded were offloaded and rushed to the field hospital. Lena climbed out slowly, her legs shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Jace appeared at her elbow, steadying her. "Easy, Sergeant. You're bleeding." She touched her face, felt the cut from the rock fragments. "It's nothing. Let them check you anyway." But before the medics could reach her, the base personnel began to assemble. Soldiers emerged from buildings, forming up without orders, creating 2 lines from the helicopter to the command building. As Lena walked between them, they came to attention, not the formal, rigid attention of ceremony, but something more profound, a recognition. Lieutenant Colonel Reeves stood at the end of the line. When Lena reached him, he saluted not to her rank, but to what she'd done. "Your mother called," he said quietly, returning to normal posture. "I told her you were delayed but safe. She said to tell you she's proud, and that she's waiting." Lena felt something break inside her chest. The exhaustion, the fear she'd suppressed, the knowledge that Torres would never go home, it all hit at once. "Permission to..." Her voice cracked. She tried again. "Permission to take a few minutes, sir." "Granted." "And Hart, Merry Christmas. You saved 6 lives tonight." 7, she corrected. Mason coded twice on the flight. Mira brought him back. "Then Merry Christmas to both of you." Lena walked to the operations building and found an empty office. She sat in the darkness for a long time, just breathing. At some point, Mira found her there, brought her coffee, sat beside her without speaking. Sometimes words weren't necessary. Around 0300 hours, her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "I know you can't tell me what happened, but I know my daughter. Whatever you did, people are alive because of you. Come home when you can. I'll be here. I love you." Lena typed back, "I love you too, Mom. I'll be there soon. Promise." She meant it this time. Dawn came slowly to the base, light seeping across the tarmac like cautious hope. Lena stood in the shower for 30 minutes, letting hot water wash away the grime and blood, watching the water circle the drain. Her hands shook, slightly delayed stress response, perfectly normal, nothing to worry about. She told herself this repeatedly. By 0700 hours, she was in the hospital wing, checking on Echo Team. Mason was in surgery, but the doctors were cautiously optimistic. The other wounded were stable. Torres's body had been moved to the morgue, where the mortuary affairs team would prepare him for his final trip home. "Sergeant Hart?" A young private approached nervously. "Colonel Reeves requests your presence in his office at 0800. Lena checked her watch. She had 40 minutes. Time for breakfast, maybe. She realized she hadn't eaten in over 12 hours. The dining facility was mostly empty, just a few night shift personnel finishing their meals before sleep. Lena took scrambled eggs and toast, nothing fancy, just fuel. She ate mechanically, not tasting anything, her mind still in razor pit, calculating shots, watching Spectre fall. At exactly 0800, she reported to Reeves's office. He wasn't alone. The base commander, Colonel Patricia Warren, was there, along with Major Chen from intelligence and a civilian Lena didn't recognize, probably CIA or DIA, given the way he stood and the way he watched her. "At ease, Sergeant," Warren gestured to a chair. "Sit, you've earned it." Lena sat, back straight, hands on her knees. Warren spoke first. "What you did last night was extraordinary. Against orders, you were supposed to be on leave in terrible conditions. You led a team into hostile territory, neutralized a superior enemy force, and extracted 6 soldiers who would otherwise be dead. Captain Mason will likely survive because of your actions. Do you understand the significance of that?" "I understand that Sergeant Torres didn't survive, ma'am." Warren's expression softened. "No, he didn't, and that loss will be investigated and documented, but his death occurred before your team even arrived. You can't save everyone, Sergeant. You can only do your best with the situation you're given." The civilian cleared his throat. "I'm Mr. Carlyle, Defense Intelligence. I need to discuss Spectre with you." Lena's attention sharpened. "I thought he was dead after the Balkans operation. So did we. Clearly, we were wrong. Can you confirm your engagement with him last night?" She described everything, the silver-tipped ammunition, the way he'd anticipated her moves, the 2 hits she'd scored on him, the final moment when he'd stood and watched her leave. Carlyle took notes on a tablet. "And you're certain he survived?" "I saw him standing. Wounded, definitely, but alive. That's problematic. Spectre has been a thorn in our side for 3 years. He's connected to at least a dozen operations against coalition forces. We'd very much like to apprehend him." "Good luck with that, sir. He's a ghost, always has been." Nevertheless, you've engaged him twice and lived. That makes you something of an expert. Carlyle glanced at Warren. We may be reaching out to request your assistance in future operations targeting him. I'm a sniper, not a hunter. Sometimes they're the same thing. Reeves interrupted. That's a discussion for another day. Sergeant Hart has been on duty for 18 hours straight. She needs rest. Warren nodded. Agreed. Sergeant Hart, you're to take 72 hours mandatory leave, effective immediately. That's an order, not a request. We'll handle any after-action reports when you return. Go home. See your mother. That's an order too. Lena stood, saluted, and left the office. In the hallway, she found Jace, Mira, and Ramirez waiting for her. You heading out? Jace asked. Yeah. You? Nah, we're stuck here for the holidays. But we wanted to say thanks for leading that op, for getting us all out. You're solid, Hart. Mira handed her a small package wrapped in newspaper improvised Christmas wrapping. Open it when you get home. You didn't have to. Just take it. Lena tucked the package under her arm. Merry Christmas, guys. Stay safe. You too, Guardian Angel. The flight home was delayed twice, first due to weather, then due to mechanical issues. Lena finally boarded a civilian charter at 1,400 hours, squeezed into a middle seat between a contractor reading a Tom Clancy novel and a young lieutenant sleeping off what was probably a terrible hangover. She didn't sleep. She watched the clouds through the window, her mind quiet for the first time in days. The package from Mira sat on her lap, unopened. They landed at 1,830 hours, local time, Christmas Day, evening. Most families would be finishing dinner, watching movies, exchanging gifts. Lena collected her duffel bag from baggage claim and walked through the terminal, following signs toward ground transportation. And there she was. Caroline Hart stood by the window, silver hair pulled back in a practical bun, wearing the same blue cardigan she'd owned for 15 years. When she saw Lena, her face transformed relief, joy, love, all mixed together. They met in the middle of the terminal. Caroline was shorter than Lena remembered, or maybe Lena had gotten taller. They held each other for a long time, not speaking. Finally, Caroline pulled back, hands on Lena's shoulders, examining her. You're hurt. The cut on her cheek had been bandaged, but it was still visible. It's nothing, Mom. It's never nothing. She touched the bandage gently. But you're here. That's what matters. The drive home took 45 minutes. Caroline filled the silence with news about neighbors, about the church choir, about her book club's latest selection. Normal things. Life-affirming things. Their house looked exactly as Lena remembered, small, ranch-style, Christmas lights along the gutters, wreath on the door. Inside, everything was familiar. The worn couch, the photographs on the mantel, the smell of cinnamon and pine. A small Christmas tree stood in the corner, decorated with ornaments Lena had made as a child. Underneath it, several wrapped presents. I know it's late, Caroline said, but we can still have Christmas dinner. I kept everything warm. They ate ham and roasted vegetables and fresh rolls. Caroline asked no questions about where Lena had been or what she'd done. The military had taught her long ago that some things couldn't be discussed. Instead, they talked about normal things. Caroline's garden plans for spring, the new coffee shop downtown, a funny story about the neighbor's escaped parrot. After dinner, they exchanged gifts. Caroline gave Lena a new winter coat, practical, warm, perfect. Lena gave her mother a photo album she'd been assembling for months, filled with pictures from her deployments. Nothing classified, just landscapes, sunsets, moments of quiet beauty from around the world. So you remember, Lena explained, that I see beautiful things too, not just. She didn't finish. Caroline understood. I never doubted it, honey. Then Lena opened Mira's package. Inside was the red scarf from Jenkins, or what remained of it. Mira had taken the pieces Lena had cut away and sewn them into a small cushion, embroidered with a simple phrase, Guardian Angel, Echo Team. Lena held it, felt the tears she'd been suppressing finally break through. Caroline moved to sit beside her, pulled her close, let her cry. I couldn't save them all, Lena whispered. Torres is dead. Mason might still die, and Spectre is still out there. But 6 men came home who wouldn't have otherwise, Caroline said firmly. That's not nothing, that's everything. They sat together until the tears stopped. Then Caroline made hot chocolate the real kind, with melted chocolate and whole milk, the way she'd done when Lena was small. They drank it in front of the tree, lights twinkling in the darkness. Around midnight, Caroline went to bed. Lena stayed up, sitting in her father's old chair, looking at his photograph on the wall. Master Sergeant David Hart in his dress uniform, proud and serious. "I did what you would have done," she told him quietly. "I hope that was enough." In the morning, Lena would wake up to messages from Reeves. Mason had pulled through surgery, prognosis good. Torres's family had been notified. Funeral scheduled for next week. Intel had confirmed Spectre had escaped the valley. Location unknown. But tonight, on this silent Christmas night, Lena Hart was just a daughter. Home at last, safe in the place where love waited and wounds could heal. Outside, snow began to fall softly, covering everything in white. 3 days later, Lena returned to base. On the mission board in the operations center, someone had posted a handwritten note. "Some heroes save Christmas not by coming home, but by ensuring others can." Below it, 6 signatures. The members of Echo Team.